Welcome, everyone. Hey, this is a podcast that explores various aspects of addiction, potentially focusing on personal stories of recovery, scientific perspectives, societal impacts, or related topics. This podcast often features discussions with experts, individuals in recovery, therapists, and advocates to offer insight and support to those affected by addiction or seeking more information about it. Welcome to another episode of The Other Side of Addiction. And today with our lovely guest, Sharon LaFleur. I'm pretty sure I said that right. We are going to be discussing the amount of unseen strength to get out of a toxic relationship. And I really do believe both men and women are really going to find this whole show very, very interesting. And it's really crazy how the day has actually gone, because I sat down and had a meeting with a good friend of mine, Lynn Long, this morning. And this is something that she was talking about because she also came from a very toxic relationship. And this is also going to be based around women being in a toxic relationship with a man, but also guys and women. I want you guys to understand too, it does happen both ways. It's probably more so the men being toxic towards the women, but also I know of men who have been in toxic relationships with women where actually they've gone through almost the same thing, which some men go, that's crazy. We're men. Why don't we put them in their place? Well, really, it's not even supposed to be that. We're supposed to work together as a couple, not putting either person into place and just hearing each other out. But unfortunately, the world has molded us to think that we have strength over one another. And I'm just going to say, I don't believe in that at all. I believe we're more powerful together as a couple than individuals. So anyway, Sharon, thank you so flipping much and for being on the show and for reaching out to me and your time and sharing the stuff that you want to talk about today. So I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
So when we did our little introduction call, there was something that you read to me that I found very powerful. And if it's okay with you, would you be willing to share that before we actually really start kicking into the show? Because I really think it's going to help people kind of understand where things are going to go.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yep. Have it on my phone and I'll go ahead and read it. It's called If It Was Really That Bad, Why Didn't You Walk Away? So imagine you have been walking in a hot desert for 3 days. The sun is relentlessly beating down. Your lips are chapped and peeling, your throat hoarse and dry. Your vision is blurred and your mind is foggy. You're not sure you're going to make it one more hour, much less one more day. Out of nowhere, a man appears and places a glass of water in front of you. It is clear and sparkling. You can smell the water. You can imagine how it will feel sliding down your throat. You reach for the glass, but he pulls it away and he smiles. If you wait until tomorrow, another man will come. This new man will refill your glass for you every day. He will give you water forever. Or you can have this one glass of water from me today, right now. But know that when that water is gone, I make no promises. This may be all the water that you will get from me. And with those words, he is off the hook. He has been honest. He has told you exactly what would happen if you take the water. So if you take it, what happens next is now your fault. You can't stop looking at the glass that he is holding. In that moment, you have gone without water so long, you're not sure you can make it another day. You begin to justify accepting less. You only need to get through today. You can figure out how to get more water tomorrow. So you accept his offer and quickly down the glass of water. Suddenly, you feel strong enough to tackle your responsibilities. For a moment, you have no regrets. However, a few months later, the water becomes less and less consistent. You start to think about leaving to find more consistent water. Your friends and your family all tell you there is plenty of water out there and you deserve it. So you take a risk and you start to walk away. Except there is no other water and it's hot. As you grow weaker, it becomes harder and harder to complete your responsibilities. Each day that goes by without relief, you feel less and less sure this was a good idea. Sure, the water was inconsistent, but you can survive on inconsistent. Maybe not thrive, but survive. Out here, you may not make it. So you go back. He is so grateful to see you. He lavishes you with more water than you can possibly drink. You start to think that maybe this time will be different, but it's not. You try to walk away again. but the same thing happens. Eventually, your friends and your family stop talking to you. They throw their arms up and become frustrated. Can't you see? Can't you tell that he's hurting you when he doesn't give you water? They say this as they gently sip from their own glass. They are right, of course, privileged perhaps, but right. So you walk away one more time, finally for good. And the world throws you a shovel. The world tells you to provide your own water. Yes, it will take time. There is a lot of healing to do, at least a year, if not longer. So weak and dehydrated, you start to dig. The only path to consistent water is to provide it for yourself. 1 month into digging, the man shows up with his water. You've had nothing to drink this entire time. However, your friends are helping you dig, and you feel the high that comes from doing the right thing, and you can confidently say no. 2 months later, he tries again. This time you're alone. Your friends have their own lives, they mean well, and they want to help you, and they do when they can, a few hours here and there. You're on probation at work. The cracks on your lips are bleeding, yet somehow you find the strength to somehow again say no. 3 months, 4 months, 5 months later, each time he tries again. Weak and exhausted, you somehow still say no. You no longer have the energy to dig and work. At this point, you're pretty sure you're going to get fired. A year later, you finally do it. You hit a small underground stream. You have made it. You went without water for an entire year, and now, finally, with all of that work, you have your own limitless supply. Your friends commend you for your success. See how much better life is now? Then they ask again, why didn't you walk away a long time ago? Again, the ice clinks again in their own glass as they sip their water. They will never fully be able to comprehend what it took for you to stand in front of them, treasuring your glass of slightly muddy water. So all you can do is smile, nod, and say, you're right, I should have. Oh, I can't hear you. Are you on mute?
Yeah, I apologize.
Oh.
That is so powerful. Very, very powerful. Thank you for sharing that with us. That whole story really resonates anyway, how I'm seeing it by reading your bio of what you've gone through in your life. Is that how you're seeing it?
In some way, I feel a lot of the time when you're in a toxic or abusive relationship, you're not sticking around for the relationship. What's happening is every time you try and leave, now it's detox, right? You've just gotten away from your addiction. And for the first time, you have to face everything that you were running from. That relationship was the cork that was keeping in years and years and years of pain. And what happens is women will jump from a relationship to relationship to escape that feeling very quickly. And that feeling is what you're running from. That feeling of now I have to actually face all of these things is what sends you back to the relationship. It has nothing to do with him. You don't love him. You don't miss him. What's happening is you're trying to avoid your own pain and the own work you have to do.
Yeah. And do you believe it's because of the fear of the unknown, of if you did, where you're going to end up?
Absolutely. I know that for me, I went from relationship to relationship, and I was afraid that if I didn't have a relationship to lean back into and I had to face all of that pain, what other resources would I turn to now to escape pain? And in my mind, the relationship was less dangerous than drugs, alcohol, sexual promiscuity, whatever it might have been, whatever direction I would have gone into next, because I still had that pain. I still wanted to run from it. So that fear of who would I become if I wasn't with this person who was kind of keeping that all in would keep me coming back to.
So basically, he was your identity in a way, maybe?
Not identity so much as he was my escape.
Okay.
He was it. He was my cocaine. He was my shot. So
Got it.
yeah.
And I've been in the single scene not a long time. I don't like it. It's very difficult out there nowadays compared, because I was with the same woman for 18 years, faithfully. Just I'm not looking at going out, and I'm not I'm not a person that I'm just because I'm a guy, I'm out there sharing myself and trying to get out as much as possible. That's just not what I want and that's not what I'm looking for. But some of the people that I've seen here and there, it seems like they've come from a bad relationship, like so many.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like, and I'm not talking myself up, but I know who I am as an individual and who I am as a man. But it seems like they're so busy trying to find every little teeny thing they can find bad about you to make them feel, nope, I got to run again. Did you find that in your singleness, I guess, being out there, or did you just run and find the exact same person that you ran away from?
I'll be honest, I I haven't really dated very much at all
Okay.
since it's been 3 years. Occasionally, I'd say every maybe 3 months or so, I'll say yes, but it usually never goes past an initial, just because I've gotten very clear about what it is I'm looking for. So it's really easy for me within, an hour or two to be like, this isn't really what I'm looking for. So I haven't, I'm a little nervous in some ways to have that experience where I have to practice having those type of conversations with someone, and I know it's going to happen, so I want it to happen someday. It's the next step for me. But I mean, I do remember there was a couples therapist that was working with me and my ex towards the end, and could see a lot of the things that had happened, and we had an individual session, just he and I, after the breakup was final. And he said, when it's time, when you find somebody that you're ready to start having a relationship, I really, really would advise you to come and just have a couple of sessions, the two of you with me, so that we can help get you through it. I know that it's gonna, there's some work that needs to be done. And I'm looking forward to it. And it's something I actually think about when I look at men who might want to ask me out. I'm like, are you the kind of guy who would say yes to that kind of a question? Right. And so
Yeah.
that's something, it limits very much the pool and the supply, but that's not a bad thing.
Yeah. No, it's not a bad thing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with any of us going out and looking for what we want, and
Absolutely.
I had a good friend who did a video about a month or so ago and was saying, if you're out there, and this goes for both men and women, if you're out there looking for that perfect relationship, you're not going to find it because none of us are perfect. We all have skeletons in our closet. But however, if there's, I mean, I had a gal tell me that she's looking for more green flags than she is red flags. And it seems like some of the other gals that I know are looking for more red flags than they are green flags because it's like they want to go that direction, but yet they don't because of that fear of moving forward. And I get it. If you come from a toxic relationship, I can't imagine how scary that would be to want to get into another one.
In the beginning, yeah, I would say probably for the first year and a half, maybe even 2 years, honestly, I still remember just being so afraid to even hang out with men. Um, I There was a taco night we would go to, and I would just have anxiety if a guy would come up to me and just start talking to me in a bar. So I had that. But what's interesting is when I kept with the path and I kept going with the healing journey. It's so cliche to say it, but that's what it is. Like now I don't have any of that. Like it's really gone. It's like as soon as you find that moment where you're truly at peace with yourself, and it's I can't even describe it. It's such a different mindset. I do like to explore the idea of the healing bond versus the trauma bond, versus like you meet somebody and you all start talking about the terrible things that have happened to you. So that's very much a trauma bond. Versus you meet somebody and they're like, oh, I'm really into like breath work or Reiki or, going out in nature, and you're talking about how you're healing. And so now are you bonding over the activities that heal you together? So now you have a
Yeah.
healing bond. Or are you just talking about your crappy ex? Like you spend your first date talking about, oh, my ex did this and this and this. And you're like, oh yeah, but my ex did this and this and this. And so that's, you're starting a trauma bond because you're bonding over your shared trauma versus bonding over your shared healing.
Yes, and thank you for putting it that way because you are 100% correct. It's that you're both playing in the sandbox of victimhood. You're both the victim, and
Yes.
it's crazy because you'll continue to play that victim role as this new relationship is possibly growing, right? However, but like you said, not but, because that cancels it out. When you have somebody or meet someone that is also in that, I'm just going to put hero box, where they want to grow and you're wanting to grow, I think that is something very special because you're growing together off of a positive note instead of the negative, the trauma, the victim.
That is the goal. And I don't think, like you were saying, everyone kind of picks everyone else apart. Oh, that's not meeting what I need. That's not meeting what I need. For me, like there has to be just a few select things that do coincide. And then outside of that, it's negotiable based on patterns that you see in their behavior. Like, are they healing? What are they talking about? What are they doing? How are they spending their time? How are they running from their pain? I mean, if they're out dating and being promiscuous themselves, like that's however you behave when you're lonely, when you're single, that's how you're going to behave when you're lonely and you're together. So if you're lonely and you're single and you're going out and hooking up with a bunch of men or women, either side, that's what you're going to want to do when you're married too. But if you're lonely and you're single and you're going out with friends groups, or you're building up your own hobbies, or you're building a career, or you're focusing on healthy ways to try and combat, or volunteering, going out and do volunteering, however you're combating that loneliness
Yeah.
in while single. So I'll like just observe, like a lot of guys will say, oh, I'm just doing this while I'm single. I'm just being, playing the field, seeing how many girls I can get to know now. And I'm like, well, I mean, if that's how you handle it now, it's how you're going to handle it later. So, I mean, I understand you don't owe me anything, but I'm also observing.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. And by all means, guys, I'm no I'm no relationship coach by all means. I have messed up and I have done a lot of wrong things in my
Oh,
past
me.
marriages and relationship, but however, I have learned from a lot of those mistakes and know that I don't want to make those same mistakes again. So you could go off of what I say or not. It's okay because again, I am definitely no professional, no professional in that. I don't have the certificate as a marriage counselor. That's for doggone sure. In your bio, you was talking about there's different types of addiction. And of course there's lots and lots of different types of addiction. The brain fires, it reacts the exact same way no matter what the addiction is. It is an addiction to be caught up in a toxic relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It
because
is,
no,
it's
go
the
ahead.
same. Oh, I was going to say it's the same exact feeling. In fact, it wasn't until because I tried to leave my relationship 9 times across the course of our time together. We knew each other 10 years, I would say. We were officially dating that time, maybe 4, 5 years. And it wasn't until I started thinking of my relationship as an addiction and followed the same 12-step program for addiction to get away and use the same rules that it finally stuck. That was the only thing for me that worked. And I also had to get rid of the inflated sense of self that I had developed inside of that relationship. I had to stop looking at myself like I was special in any way. Like I was the person who was going to change him. I was the person he was going to change for. Like I had to get rid of that. And I had to start looking at myself as his addiction. And just like when an alcoholic succumbs to their addiction and goes in and has alcohol, in the moment they enjoy it. They enjoy it a lot. But afterwards, they hate it. They hate alcohol. And so his behavior toward me, as it started to get more and more abusive, mimicked that same behavior where when he was with me and we'd initially get back together, he was so happy and he loved it. But then he would hate himself for succumbing to his addiction and coming back to me, and he would start taking that out on me, and the behavior would become more and more abusive.
Yeah. And the way that you put that, just some thoughts started coming through, going through my head with it. Because I stood by my ex-wife a lot through a lot of years of her battle with alcoholism. And it's crazy because there was a lot of times I said I was done and then I'd end up bringing her back. And I had a buddy tell me I was addicted to her addiction. And I use that a lot in the show because he was spot on. I
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
literally was addicted to her addiction, and we fall back into that. I just call it a cesspool. We just jump right back into that cesspool after we get out and shower and clean ourselves off. It's like, well, let's get dirty again and see where it goes. You're still jumping in the same cesspool. Nothing, and I don't mean that by any disrespect of the individual. Please don't take it that way because that's not how I mean it. But it's just how it's because it's so toxic, right? And a cesspool is very toxic, and we continue to just keep jumping in because we are addicted to the addiction.
Yeah, we're addicted to the highs and the lows of the dopamine,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to get away from that is difficult. Even when they're behaving their worst, it's a it's a validation of their love in some way. Like our brain interpreting that as, oh, they wouldn't care so much if they didn't love me. So any attention from them whatsoever feeds the addiction. And you have to just get to a point where you can't consider yourself as special in any way. You have to just see yourself as their addiction. And anytime they try and they call it love bombing, reel you back in with that love bombing behavior, you just have to look at that as almost peer pressure that isn't real. It's not going to lead to an actual healing. Like words are just words, and behavior initially, especially when it has to do with you, if their behavior is everything about you and getting you back and how special you are and how beautiful you are, and nothing to do with them and their accountability of, and not just I was wrong, I was drinking, because like we just talked about, it has nothing to do with the addiction. It's what is the addiction hiding? What pain are they trying to cover? And so until he starts or she starts being honest with you about the pain that they're running from, and that's why they're drinking, and you can see them actively trying to work on it, even then I would just be really cautious going back. You need to see that behavior for a really, really long time. And I think that's why they ask or tell a lot of addicts, you need to wait a year before a relationship, because you need to see that behavior action outside of those dopamine surges that you get from the relationship. It's really hard to get sober on alcohol when you're still taking shots, right? So
Yeah,
the same love addiction. If you try and decide to go back to somebody or make that work, just know it. Like there's a reason it works out so rarely.
yeah. Well, and I think I'm pretty sure you know the same thing is when we have that constant thought, I mean, we're admitting that type of energy. And of course, we're going to attract that same type of person, you
Oh,
know?
absolutely. I think it's going to probably be someone worse,
Yeah,
because self-esteem is just taint. You've accepted it for so long. Your self-esteem is in the garbage. So the next person that you accept is not going to be at the normal caliber you would have tried to date before you met him. And that's just going to continue. So each time, if you don't heal yourself, each cycle is going to get worse and worse and worse, because you're going to expect less and less from yourself.
yeah. Yeah, and then of course, then we get that shame, and then we get the guilt, and the hamster wheel starts turning the exact same direction it was turning before.
It does. And you ask yourself over and over, why am I not strong enough? Well, the answer is because you have a chemical addiction. You need to treat the chemical addiction first. And you can't just say, I didn't have enough willpower. It's like if you break your leg, right? You're not going to tell somebody who's 2 weeks after a broken leg, why aren't you running a marathon yet? You
Yeah,
need to fully treat and heal the injury first. So you don't, like, shame has no place in that. It is not a willpower conversation. And what sucks, what's the hardest is in Utah, you have a lot of women and men in these situations where they need that healing so that they don't go and they don't embrace that second toxic relationship. But it's so expensive. Like therapy is not cheap, right? And the time investment it takes. And then just like with what I read to you, right? Like you're trying to maintain a job, being a good mom, and you're sitting here thinking, okay, on top of that, I have to heal, which is a full time job in the beginning after you've escaped a toxic relationship. So it's like you're set up for failure from the beginning, which by default just means that you're not going to do it because you're just going to focus on your job and your kids, and your self-esteem and your self-confidence is just going to tank further and further.
Yeah. Yeah, amen to that. And it does. It happens to all of us. I mean, it really does in one way or another. And I mean, there are marriages that are still together where both people are feeling that way.
Oh
And,
yeah.
and they just stay together because maybe it's the kids or whatever it may be for them. I don't know, and I really don't want to say, but however, all of us have the right to be happy, right? To be happy. And I mean, it even goes with our jobs. We're just not even talking relationships. How many people stay in a job they cannot stand because of the fear of going in a different direction and not knowing how? And I went hiking with a lovely friend of mine yesterday who is part of our Healing Utah Success Summit team, and she was gonna she's going to move to Florida, and she was going to move after the event in October. And the way her life's going, she just said, unfortunately, I've got to go before. It's just the direction. She's 40, lovely young lady, single. And I was telling her yesterday on our hike, I said, I tip my hat off to you. I really do, for finding the courage and the strength. And she's coming up on 2 years of sobriety to take the leap of going to an unknown, because she's like, I'm still young enough. And I know now I don't need a man in my life, but I would like a man in my life.
Sure.
However, I have to go the direction I need to go to really find and dig deep of who I am as an individual. And I tip my hat off to her, because when she finds who that person is inside her, I told her, I says, you will find that person you're looking for, because you have now found yourself. And I'm just a firm, my version of it is, when we find ourselves and we have that self love for ourselves, as being a spiritual type person, God starts placing the right people in your life. And my version of it is so strong because I've seen it happening in my life. I've been seeing it happen in my life. And there's nothing wrong with pulling away. And even if you feel weak or whatever, there's so many people out there, especially ladies. You got someone like Sharon right here who's lived it and gone through it. I'm serious, right? To say, hey, we we all need help. We can't do it alone. We need help from somewhere. And most people go to the higher power, but the higher power will also put people here on this earth to help us along our path as well.
Well, you get a lot of help for alcoholism or drugs when you go to a rehab center, right? In a rehab facility, you're away from your addiction for an extended period of time. You are constantly being exposed to different therapies and different mindsets, and you're challenging your thinking. You're constantly having meetings. You're in an introspective place for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without phone, without access to the outside world. It is truly a place where you can start to really work on healing. And anyone who's been through one of those facilities would tell you they don't even care what your addiction is. They don't even talk about what your addiction is. It could be heroin, it could be cocaine, it could be alcohol, whatever it is. The healing is the pain that's leading you to your addiction. And it's trying to help you discover more healthy, more efficient ways to cope with that pain so that you aren't tempted to go back. So you're getting other resources and education and training. In a domestic violence situation, you're not given that same opportunity. You leave and maybe you go to a shelter, but if you don't have friends, you don't have family, you have kids, they'll do the best that they can at the shelters, and they'll give you support and counseling to an extent, but it's nowhere near the same intensity that you get in a facility. And just in my gut, I wonder how many more, because it's becoming a chronic problem. Like more and more women are getting involved in these toxic relationships all the time as the divorce rates get higher and higher and higher, especially as women leaving these divorces become incredibly financially unstable. So that amount of stress when you're trying to provide for your kids and yourself gets to be something you really want to run from. And so again, you're starting that down these toxic relationships because it alleviates that stress for just a moment. And in order for that to really be something you can handle, heal, address, and stop in its tracks and choose a different path, to have that 38 days or 28, 38 days, whatever it is, of help, of just like pounding it into your head. There's a different option. There's a different way you can go through this. It's going to be harder. It will be harder. And then when you come out of those programs, I mean, AA, that's there for your alcoholics. You have NA for your narcotics, but there's no addiction program set up for DV victims. I wonder what the world would be like if there was the same setup for women coming out of these abusive, or men.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Not at the same time. Obviously, I think it's better if they're gender specific. I think that is kind of really important, and you're trying to beat that necessary or that tendency to fall into addiction. But I've wondered a couple of times if I have the capacity to really start spearheading, creating some programs like that. And what I've realized or come to understand is I'm a single mom right now. I went back to college. I homeschool my youngest. My oldest has autism and epilepsy. This isn't my season, but I'm turning 40 this year. I have the rest of my life. And I know on some level at some time when my plate lightens a little bit, this will be something I'm very passionate about, seeing if I could make happen.
Yeah. And you have an amazing idea. I mean, seriously, you do. And I hope that you can go down that path because it's needed. It's very much needed, especially with the way the world is out there today. And there's a lot of stuff I don't even know that's happening out there because I choose to stay away from it. I like living in Al's happy bubble. I just like to be in my bubble. And life is already going to throw what I like to call shit balls at me because that's what life does. And that's how we learn. That's how we grow. I don't want to know of all the negative stuff out there because I don't want to bring more negative into my life. I just want to stay in my little happy bubble. But for you to see that vision and even have it, I think I said even before we started recording, there's some other ladies that I know who are looking at wanting to make some changes. And I'd love to connect you with them just to see. You never know where it might go. It might not go anywhere, or there might be some kind of thing where you guys can work together, even being full-time moms and students and taking care of the kids. I mean, you've got so much on your plate. However, there's still ways. There's still ways to make things work if it's a direction that people really want to go. You know, a friend of mine and that too, we're working on some things and we've tossed some stuff around and we're going, you know what? I really think we can do this. I think we can make a difference. We can do something that no one else is ever doing in this, that we know of in this valley. And we may have to come in through the back door to get to where we want to go, but we're willing to go through that back door because you know this, Sharon, just by what you're sharing and what you've gone through. There's so many people out there that need help. And if not us, who?
And unfortunately, and I won't get to too much detail on this because it's a little darker. Unfortunately, the sex trafficking world has also really started to become aware of the emotional state of these women, of women leaving divorce, again, financially stable. And there are so many just very sneaky paths that women are started down by these very charming, very evil men who are grooming them essentially. And before they even know what's happening, they're introduced to a whole world that they didn't even know existed. And it's again because they didn't have that support. They didn't have that place to go. And the state, I worked for an attorney's office for 3 years as a legal assistant. And And I overheard a lot of conversations about how they're wanting to actually cut back on services like welfare, um, and more, encouraging women to stay in their marriages more and more and more because it's cheaper for the state, right? They're not on welfare. So it's cheaper for the state if they can somehow get these women to not leave these abusive relationships. So they're actually trying to actively keep them in their situation, which is ridiculous to me. So it's like we're as a society working in reverse. And yeah, up front, it's probably going to be more expensive. But if you look down the long road, our society and our culture will only benefit by healing women and increasing the number of whole, vibrant, beautiful, confident women in our state and our nation.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely 100%. And it's the same way even like in the recovery community with the drugs or alcohol or porn or gambling, whatever it may be, right? The healthier that we can help individuals become, the stronger our community becomes and the better we all become as individuals. And unfortunately, there are so many people out there. I won't say everyone because it's not everyone, but there are people out there that don't want that. They want to see us suffering because that's how they control people better, right? When they've got people that are hurting and suffering, they can control us a lot better. And my good friend Jessica, who I talk about a lot on the show, she's talks about immunotherapy, amino acids, and proper brain nutrition, and she talks about all the toxins that are in our food and our water and all this stuff and how it's changing the dynamics. I mean, we shared on the show today. Um, you know, I know people who are 18, 19 years of age who have to go get testosterone treatments because of all the estrogen stuff that's being in our foods. And they're almost demasculating, if that's the proper word, the men. And then more women are getting more estrogen than what they need, which is changing their whole dynamics of things. And it's like they're trying to switch everything around. They're trying to play God. That's just how I'm going to say it. That's how I see it. They're trying to play God and change things the way they want to see it when God didn't intend it to be that way. He intended men to be men and women to be women. And I'm not against any of the transgender stuff. That, you know, it's your body, it's your life. If that's the way you want to go, who am I to say it's wrong? Because I don't have a clue, and I'm not going that direction. But I'm just saying, when we're all out there supporting and loving one another and helping one another get through our addiction, basically, we become stronger as individuals and we become a heck of a better community. And nothing that I know of can overcome love. When love is out there,
No,
right?
it's true. And I, people are people,
Mm-hmm.
regardless. That is my approach. That said, two things are true. It's one of my favorite quotes. Two things are true. Actually, I don't know if I could call it a quote because I think I just started saying it. Yes, people who are going through addiction need support. And people who are going through addiction, if they're not actively talking to the right people who can actually heal them and help them, can become emotional weights on their friends and family. And it is completely understandable how after enough time goes by, their friends and family have to draw their own boundaries and say, enough, I can't do this anymore. There's nothing wrong with that. And so I think you can have compassion without taking on accountability. Like you don't need to be responsible, but you can still show compassion. I would say just be supportive of the efforts they are making that are healthy, but that does not mean you become codependent with them.
And very well put. I'm glad that you put that because I've had to just recently do that in my life. I mean, seriously, I just had to say, okay, enough's enough. I can't be dragged back into this that I've worked so hard to get out of.
Right.
And you can still care about people and you can do that from a distance. And hopefully they'll work on what they need to work on to get them to where they want to go.
Right. I mean, I say toxic relationship, but I mean, nobody stays with something if it's all bad, right? I truly loved my person, like, so much, but that couldn't be enough. And there were times, and I don't think that he always wanted to just give into his addiction. I actually think there were periods of authentic time where he truly, truly wanted to heal. And I would fall in love with him all over again during that time frame.
Yeah.
But it wasn't sustainable because I was truly his only, for lack of a better word, therapist, which was never supposed to be my job. I took it on way more than I should have in hindsight. Now that I know more, now that I've learned more, it should have been something that he did outside of me a lot more if it was going to last or if it was going to sustain. But I mean, I don't blame myself for that. It's something I had to learn.
Yeah. In the addiction community, I've heard this many times in the 3+ years that I've been involved with it, is the opposite of addiction is connection.
Mm.
And to be able to have that connection, which you mentioned it just a little bit ago, to be able to have that connection and the right people, if that's why in therapy and recovery centers, the majority of the people that work in them are people who are in long-term recovery themselves, because they understand and they get it. They
Yeah.
understand the pain, the fight, how hard it is to get to where you want to go, when sometimes it seems impossible and you're ready to throw in the flag. They're there to lift you back up and to kind of say, hey, come on, it's I don't want to put it like, if we go back to like when we're infants, when we first wanted to learn how to walk, how many times did we fall and hit our heads or bang our chins off coffee tables or cut our lip or whatever, and we cry? That never stopped us. We still would get up and try to walk again. And however, when we become adults, we seem so quick to throw in the towel and just go, I'm not happy, but I'm willing to stick it out.
Well, that's actually very biological as well. There's apathy, like just that it is what it is sensation. But the danger with that is it doesn't just stick with your relationship, it bleeds into all the other areas of your life. So if you're in a situation where your brain has just given up on the idea that anything can get better, then you no longer start putting effort into it. And like, you don't do that with your relationship, you don't do that with your career, your fitness, anything. And so in all areas, your quality of life starts to suffer because you just gave up and you threw in the towel in one area.
Yeah. It's like everything starts imploding.
Uh-huh. Yeah, pretty much. And then, you know, the brain isn't indestructible. It can't keep going forever. I used to believe, and this was very privileged of me before I went through a whole lot of trauma myself, I used to adopt the mindset of you just need to try harder, just go outside more, you need to do your affirmations, you need to do these, and the list of things that you're supposed to do, which is really toxic when you're dealing with somebody in those first initial stages of grief, when they're just barely trying to get out of something. Like, really, at that time, the only thing that that person needs or wants is to feel seen, because they just let go of the only person who's seen them. Because when you get into a toxic relationship, you have to make a choice. You can love them or you can love you. You don't get both. So the people who stay, they've chosen them, which means they've given up their self-love. So when they walk away from that relationship, now there's no love. So the only thing that they need in those beginning stages is, I love you. You're stronger than you realize. That can't last forever. That's just a band-aid. I talk to my kids about this all the time. There's a difference between band-aids and long-term solutions and open heart surgery. So you come home from school, there's a bully, that hurts. I'm acknowledging that. I'm validating that. Let's put a band-aid on it. What can we do? Let's go get ice cream. Let's watch TV. Let's play video games. Now that we put the band-aid on, how do we heal the long-term pain? Well, maybe once a week we go on a hike. Let's just start small. little things. What can we do to help build up your confidence? What's a skill? What's a new hobby you want to learn? Something that's going to build you up on the inside, because that's where the healing starts.
Yeah. And I love that you said let's start small. It's the baby steps. So many of us want that gratification. Us as humans, we want that gratification right now, right this minute. But if you go back
Well,
and go ahead,
it's not on it. It's that the world expects it from us.
expect it. There you
You're
go.
like, you don't have that abusive relationship anymore. That's out of your life. You should be strong now. The thing that was dragging you down is gone. So why aren't you strong? And that's such backward thinking, because he was actually the band-aid. The
Yeah.
thing that made her strong temporarily, maybe not consistently, but every once in a while, this band-aid gave her strength, is gone now. And so she has nothing. She has no, I went 3 days feeling really crappy, but then, there's one good day in the relationship and it kind of brought me back up again. So I can last just a little bit longer. Gone. So they're actually in a worse state mentally at that point. And we're expecting them to act like, oh, okay, now you're strong.
Yeah.
It's just, it's not possible.
It isn't. It isn't. Society doesn't want us to feel our emotions. They're so quick to give us something to numb us, right? We're in pain here. Go to the doctors. Oh, your anxiety here. Let me give you a pill for that. Oh, you got depression here. Let me give you a pill for that. Again, these are just band-aids. These aren't the solution.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, a lot of those band-aids create more band-aids down the road because they take you to a whole different arena because it's changing our brain chemistry.
Well, that's where the drug addiction comes from, right? You get a whole bunch of women who are depressed. They've been introduced to painkillers, and now suddenly there's a secret housewife down the street who's addicted to opioids because for the first time she's starting to get a break from that feeling of that pain that she's been hiding for so long. And
Yeah.
she can't stop hiding it, because as soon as she stops hiding it, the world doesn't understand and doesn't give her space to feel grief for losing a relationship. Like, really, what happens even when you walk away from a toxic relationship is there is immense amount of grief that you are making. And then on top of that grief, you're like, okay, now all of the feelings that I suppressed, that you were making me hide from, all of the trauma that happened before I even met you, let's deal with that too. Oh, and by the way, do that without a therapist, maintain your job, still be a good mom, and don't bug anybody too much with how sad you are.
Yeah. 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 Which in turn creates other addictions, right? Because
Yeah.
they fall into other things to again numb that pain. It's such a repetitive cycle. It really is in so many different ways. And we've said on the show many times before, there's so many different types of addiction. And it's crazy how society will accept so many of them. And then there's just those few that society says, oh, you're broken, you're worthless, there's something wrong with you. And there's something wrong with all of us. We're all
Oh, yeah.
broken in one way or another.
I think we all need rehab, honestly.
We
I think
do.
we could
We
all
do.
from 30 days in an intensive care system.
Yeah. Well, I
I mean,
think I think that's why we're starting to see an increase of people doing breath work, sound bathing,
absolutely.
yoga, meditation, because people hundreds and thousands of years ago, that's what they did. And
Yeah.
and modern medicine has changed it. Now, we need it. I mean, if I broke my leg, I want to go to a doctor to fix my leg, right? We got to have that. However, we're so quick of handing out other things. I mean, if you watch TV, the commercials, it's just they're flooded with drugs, prescriptions. You want to lose weight? Here's something you can just give yourself a shot and lose weight. Side effects, 30 seconds of side effects, right? May cause blah, 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 blah. And it's like we're constantly poisoning ourselves because we feel like we have to look a certain way to be accepted in society. We have to walk a certain way. We have to have a certain kind of home, drive a certain kind of car. We have to speak a different way. And
Well, our society is so lonely anyway. And I like that what you said about oh no, I can't remember. I lost it. it doesn't matter. I was just going to say our society and our culture in general has become more and more isolated. We used to, like barn raisings, all the neighbors would come over. Music, you would have everyone over for a house party because only one person can play the piano, or there's only one violinist in the town. And so if you wanted music, that's what you'd have to do. You'd go out and get water from the well or the stream, and you're constantly surrounded by people in your community. And now we're all just kind of isolated in our own little houses. And social media somehow, instead of making that better, makes us feel even more lonely because everyone else is posting all of these amazing adventures they are, and they look like they have this great life. And I mean, I think we all know at this point now, logically, that's all just a snapshot. We know logically it's not real, but our emotional state doesn't understand that. We're still firing off little pings of sad every time we think that maybe, other people aren't as lonely as we are, which is so not true.
Yeah.
So it exacerbates that desire that we have to pretend that our life is better than it really is, and using medications or whatever it might be to be able to give off that illusion, because with that illusion we feel like maybe it's a fake it till you make it thing. I think that's what people really think. They're like, if I just fake it for a while, it'll become real in time, not realizing that the things that we really need are on the inside, but also not disregarding that the need for human interaction and attention is actually incredibly healthy. I actually think it's detrimental for people to shame others for, oh, you just posted that because you wanted attention, or your kids just acting out because they want attention. Okay, they're communicating with me. They're telling me I need attention. It'd be better if they use their words, but it's okay for right now until they learn that that's something that's safe to do with me. Then I'll just interpret their sign language. Now let me give them the attention they actually want, not a band-aid. So I know for me, when I'm looking for more and more attention, when I get the desire to maybe go on Tinder and do a hookup because I just feel lonely, then I'm like, okay, what is it that I'm actually feeling right now? Okay, I'm lonely. Can I call a friend? Can I go do something else to fill that need for loneliness instead? And there was a period of time I would just, call a list of people and maybe no one was available, and I'd get worse. And so then I started volunteering playing piano for a senior center. I would just go in twice a week and play the piano, and they would applaud. And if you have ever performed an instrument at a senior center, they are so appreciative and they make you feel like a superstar. And that is what got me through the holidays without getting on Tinder or something, because I wanted to cuddle in front of the fire, whatever it was. That's how I met my healthy human need for attention. Because everyone who just says, oh, my need for attention is so bad. No, it's not. No, just meet it in a healthy way. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. We can definitely get it. We can definitely get it. And it's going back to reaching down deep inside you and find that person. Because when I lost my job of 24 years, which was 15 years ago, it really woke me up, because the person I thought I wasn't even close to that person. And it was a friend that basically told me I was a liar and a manipulator, which I called BS on it. And I've said this on the show quite a few times. And I really reached down deep and started thinking more about it. And I realized this person was 100% right. And here it is 15 years later. I mean, when I talk to people who know me now and I say, this is how I used to be, they're like, there's no way that was you. And I'm like, oh, yeah, 100%. You wouldn't have been my friend like you are today, because you would have figured things out. And it's possible. It is definitely possible. And it's not a quick fix. It's something that we continue to work on. And it's something that I really do believe it's something we work on in the rest of our lives. It's not a 6-month, 2-year, 8-year, 10-year program. It's a life program.
Yeah, it's incredibly hard. And I think we downplay how hard it is for other people, because I think on some level we're worried that if we validate them, that they're going to ask too much of us. They're going to drain too much from us and give us caretaker fatigue, which is a valid concern, I think, because there are people, I have friendships where I'm like, you're not doing enough work on your own. I am afraid if I deepen this friendship with you, you're going to ask too much of me, and I don't have the bandwidth for that. So I have to create a boundary with some friendships for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's not what I want to do. It's not what I would have done 5, 10 years ago. I would have thought I was being an asshole if I did that. But it's actually not. I mean, creating those boundaries are healthy for both you and for them. Because I know the friends that create boundaries now are the ones I feel safest with, because I can kind of push the boundaries of what I ask. I can maybe ask for a little bit more than I would normally ask for with those friends, because I trust that they will tell me if I've gone too far. The ones that won't tell me, they'll go behind my back and tell another friend, oh, I'm just so overwhelmed by this person. It's too much. He's asking too much from me. And so, because I'm worried that may or may not happen, I don't ask for anything from that person. So, it's interesting how you change your perspective as your brain heals, and you look at something that at one time I thought was really mean and cruel, and I now see it as healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a very good point, Sharon. A really good point is we all have boundaries and we need to set them. If you if you tell somebody, hey, if you do this again, this relationship's over, or I'm going to have to figure something out different or whatever. If it does happen again and you don't set that boundary, basically all they are is threats. And the threats ain't going to go anywhere. It will continue to happen.
Mm-hmm.
When you set those boundaries, which every single one of us as a human being have a right to have boundaries. We have a safe place for us, and we don't want to go past that safe place, right? We don't want to let people in our safe place that's helping us become the individuals that we want to become. So I'm glad that you brought that up because,
Well, anytime
yeah,
we break a boundary or let somebody break a boundary, it has nothing to do with them. It's not because, oh, I love you, that's why I'm breaking it. It's
yeah,
everything to do with the fact that deep down you're getting something from it too. Whether it's valid, like, oh, I'm such a good person that they picked me to be their friend, or I must be amazing that they're wanting to come to me for this, or whatever it is, you're getting something from it. And you just need to be very honest with yourself about, okay, I'm letting this person break my boundaries. What is it that I'm getting from them that is allowing me to keep letting it happen? And how can I get that need that I obviously have met in another way so I don't let it happen again?
yeah, yeah. Good way of looking at it. My gosh, I mean, an hour goes by so fast, so doggone fast. It's is there something that you really wanted to share on the show that you haven't had an opportunity to really get out there speak about?
Um, I would just say at the end of the day, trauma is a cycle. Toxicity is a cycle. There was a reason that my ex behaved in the way that he did, from his own pain. And for a long time, I saw that. And I would give him a lot of leeway or a lot of leash because I could see that, until I reframed that belief to now say, no, I'm not responsible for the things that happened to me, but I am responsible for the person I allow those things to turn me into, so that I don't continue the process. So we didn't really go into my background or history or anything that I've gone through. Sounds like we don't really have time, so that's fine. But enough happened that I started to change fundamentally who I was. I wasn't as patient with my kids. I found myself getting angry and yelling at them when I'd never done that before. And I found that my behavior was starting to change in relation to other people because of how I was being treated. And I wanted to break the cycle. And so I couldn't forgive him, his demons anymore. And I had to make him be accountable for his behavior if I wanted to be in the same boat. I wanted to be accountable for my behavior. So I couldn't let what he was doing to me be the excuse for why now I wasn't being the mom I wished I could be.
Yeah. Well, I tip my hat off to you, and really any woman or man who has gone through a toxic relationship and found a way to pull themselves away from it, figure
It's
things out. And
definitely the hardest I've ever done in my life. So it's
yeah,
anyone who's going through that, I don't let anyone tell you it's easy, because it's not.
yeah. Yeah. So I tip my hat off to all of them because again, it's work in progress and continue work in progress because I do have some lady friends who have gone through some very, very toxic relationships, and every once in a while you still see it surface back for them. You know, our subconscious mind for whatever triggered them, because we do have those triggers, it brings it back, and our subconscious mind, it does its job. It doesn't know what's real, what's fake. All it knows, it's there to protect us, and it can come back really, really quick. And it's it's also amazing to see that the work that they have put forth into healing themselves, finding themselves, how they allow that emotion to take its course, but then they get right back on the horse per se, and just keep moving forward. And to me, that takes a ton of resilience, a ton of strength, and it just really shows the spirit of any human, no matter what we've gone through, that it is possible to heal from.
It is, and that is very encouraging.
Yeah, very encouraging. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we sign off?
Oh, you mean I could go on for another hour. Like, I,
You know, I do get guests that come back on the show. If that is something that you're interested in here down the road, I'd love to have you come back on. If you'd like to share even more of your story, since we didn't really get a lot of your bio. Your bio will be on the pre-show with your picture, so a lot of people will get to know really before they hear the show who Sharon is, what she's gone through. But you know, feel free to reach out to me again, Sharon, like you did in the first place, and say, hey, you know, I'd like another opportunity to come on, and that's what this platform is for. So you're more than
well,
welcome.
that's why I reached out because I just over and over I talk to women all the time who feel better talking to somebody who they know gets it. There's just you can see them visibly relax when they're talking to somebody who gets it, and I know how alone I felt during so many parts of my journey. I thought no one else feels this way, and it's just not true. So I wanted that to be a story. I wanted my story to be a story that somebody else could relate to and say, I'm not alone. And there is a possibility to get through this. If there's interest, and maybe we just kind of look at some of the comments or people who write in afterwards and hearing exactly how that story looked, I'd be more than happy to come back and tell it in more detail.
Okay. Yeah, you just definitely let me know, because you have something that you want to share. And that's what I love about having this platform. It gives individuals like yourself to use your voice to get it out there. Because you know this, Sharon, all it takes is helping one person. And the snowball effect that can come from that can be huge, and we won't even know it. But you touch one woman's life, you make a difference in one woman's life, that woman's going to make a difference in someone else's life, and it's just gonna keep going.
Snowball, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you again for your time, and gosh, we got off in so many different directions, and now I wish that I really do hope that you come back so we can get more of your story. But your bio will definitely be on the pre-show so people get to see a little bit more. And if there are women out there that have questions, can they find you? How do they find you on social media to maybe message you and reach out to you?
I mean, my name is Sharon LaFleur, so I just spelled LAFLEUR. I'm sure you'll have it written down somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to filter, messages as they come in on social media, Messenger. I'm on Facebook. I'm not on a whole lot of social media platforms. Facebook really is the only one, and I keep that one pretty locked down. I only
Okay.
list to friends and family, but I mean, messaging is fine. You can still, use instant messenger when you want. So I'd be happy
Okay.
to reach out as I can.
Okay. I love it. Thank you again, my dear. I greatly
Yeah,
appreciate it.
thanks.
Well,
Bye.
guys, again, thank you to all our listeners, our sponsors, everyone, past sponsors, guests. I mean, you guys are the ones that make this show all possible and helping it grow. Greatly, greatly appreciate you. And remember, guys, mark your calendars for October 5th. It's on a Saturday at the Miller Free Enterprise Building in Sandy. from 10:30 to about 2:30, possibly 3:30. We've got our 4th Healing Utah Success Summit. We've got 5 great speakers, and it's all based around domestic violence, suicide, addiction, recovery, inspiration, the stigma. We've got some great vendors and some sponsors that's going to be a part of this. So guys, again, if you want to buy a ticket, go to Ruesch Recovery. That's RUESCH recovery.com. You can get your tickets. They're only $25. Very, very cheap to come to this event. You guys will walk away definitely inspired. So please mark that on your calendar. If you got any questions, please reach out to me. And remember this, addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.